Hello and welcome to 2022. Well, yes, it is 2022. Well, of course, we know there's been lots of celebrations last night. Some people celebrated, some people did. But it is 2022 and this is the first show for this year. Well, Brisbane had the fireworks once again yesterday, as I reported first thing in the morning, that the fireworks were at 8:30 p.m. and then at 12, and the main venue was South Bank. But of course, they also had that at the Eagle Street Pier, so that people on this side of the river could also witness and be part of the celebration in welcoming. Because when we celebrate New Year, it's not the New Year's Day. It's the New Year's Eve that's been celebrated. The main day is that. So, well, right now, let's take a look at what happened in Sydney. As we know, it was amazing, the fireworks once again there. And looking at Sydney, Sydney welcomes and sees a new year with dazzling fireworks display. Good riddance to 2021. Let 2022 bring fresh hope. That appears to be the common theme and the tips of everyone. Well, is on the tongues. As the world began welcoming the new year, New Zealand was one of the first places to celebrate New Year. Not forgetting Fiji is even before that, with a low-key lights display projected onto Auckland landmarks, including the Sky Tower and the Harbour Bridge, replacing the traditional fireworks show. In many places, New Year's Eve celebrations were muted or cancelled for the second straight year due to the surge of coronavirus. We know that, and many places just went ahead. So this time, driven by the highly contagious Omicron variant, while there hasn't been any community spread of Omicron in New Zealand, authorities still wanted to discourage crowds from gathering. Neighbouring Australia, however, went ahead with its celebration, as we have headed here. That Sydney was huge, and of course Brisbane was amazing as well. So Australia went ahead despite an explosion of virus cases. Some fireworks were let off early in the evening to give younger children a preview of the centrepiece of the festivities, the renowned fireworks display from Sydney Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House before the celebrations began. Australian health authorities reported a record of 32,000 new cases, many of them in Sydney. Because of the surge, crowds were far smaller than in pre-pandemic years, when as many as 1 million people would crowd in Sydney. Because of the position of the international dateline, countries in Asia and Pacific region are among the first to usher in each new year. We know Dateline crosses Fiji. Even before Omicron hit, many people were happy to say goodbye to a second grinding year of the pandemic. But so far, at least the Omicron surge hasn't resulted in the same levels of hospitalizations and the deaths as previous outbreaks, especially among vaccinated people, offering a glimmer of hope for 2022. And we really hope that hope is there, and that 2022 is our recovery year. Well, I mean, we've all said that 2021 we might be getting out of this and moving ahead. Of course, due to being the Christmas and the holiday period, and didn't want to cancel all the things, and that's why authorities opened up many of the areas, including Queensland. Well, right now let's take a look at some of the news. But first of all, wishing everyone the best for the new year from the management, staff, presenters and correspondents of Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio, and also the team at GlobeNet Realty. Wishing everyone all the very best for 2022. Well, fireworks yesterday exploded to begin the new year. amazing display there, and of course we know that in Brisbane there were 60 tons of the fireworks and skylighters, displayed that at a cost of 145,000. Of course, a lot of that cost has been borne by Brisbane City Council. Well, right now it's time to take a look at the key stories for today.
Michael Tetlow with the headlines on ABC News. Australia has welcomed 2022 with the traditional Sydney Harbour fireworks display. Crowds were down across the country at mainly ticketed New Year celebrations, but reports from the ground are that spirits were high. Confirmed COVID cases will no longer have to conduct a rapid test on day 6 to exit isolation, provided they don't have any symptoms. It follows growing complaints of price gouging and limited supply, with the tests flying off shelves as cases surge. New South Wales has recorded more than 21,000 new infections, almost as many as yesterday's figure for the entire country. There were more than 2,000 new infections in South Australia, 3,000 in Queensland and nearly 6,000 in Victoria. Australia has been rocked ahead of the 4th Ashes test, with Travis Head testing positive to COVID. The cases now in both camps, every precaution being taken ahead of the Sydney test next week. And hot weather in Western Australia has left dozens of critically endangered western ringtail possums needing treatment after being found badly dehydrated and in poor health. The critically endangered marsupials have been seen falling from trees or discovered on the ground. Those are the headlines from ABC News. For more at any time, you can go to our website or listen to ABC Local Radio. From the team.
And thank you very much, ABC, for providing most of our contents throughout the year, and it is just amazing. Well, right now, what's going to happen is we'll take a look at what does it mean. What does it mean to be a close contact, and as per the new definitions.
So rules for confirmed cases of COVID have just changed, that's right. So if you have COVID, you will no longer be required to do a rapid test on day 6 of your isolation. National Cabinet has just announced instead you're going to need to wait until you're symptom-free. Now, this doesn't apply to close contacts, who we got a new definition for yesterday from National Cabinet. They're still going to need to do a rapid test on days 1 and 6 of their isolation. And depending on where you live in Australia, if you're a close contact, you may still need to get a PCR test as well, as appears to be the case in New South Wales. And that really underscores, in a way, the fact that while yesterday's National Cabinet meeting was in part about getting a nationally consistent definition and set of rules for close contacts, that doesn't seem to have happened quite yet. We've actually heard from South Australia that their window for being considered a close contact is significantly shorter than the National Cabinet definition, and that their time for being isolated as a close contact is a bit longer as well, 10 days instead of 7. So it looks like that nationally consistent definition that the Prime Minister was pretty set on delivering just hasn't happened yet. But just on that definition, which has come into place in a number of states and territories today, it considers a close contact as someone who lives with a case of COVID, who's in a caring situation with someone who has it, or someone who's spent at least 4 hours with a COVID case in a household-like setting, for instance, like an aged care facility, for example. Now, there have been questions about why that hasn't been extended out to workplaces, for example, or places where we will be gathering together, where there might be a lot of people for a prolonged period of time, particularly over summer. Now, we've been putting these questions to Emergency Management Minister Bridget McKenzie. Here she is earlier today.
We've made these decisions, and the Premiers have made these decisions based on health advice, and so it's not up to me as a politician to second-guess Paul Kelly or the Chief Health Officers of the jurisdictions. They've brought to this conversation and this decision the very best science, the very best evidence and data that they haven't just gathered from here at home but right around the world. And we need to understand that as situations change, so does scientific analysis.
Claudia, what about rapid testing that's said to be a big part of the new rules?
Yes, exactly. So with the close contacts having to do rapid testing, that's going to be a pretty big change in a number of jurisdictions where that's come into place today. But we have also heard from the federal government yesterday confirming that they won't be funding rapid tests for people who are asymptomatic. So for instance, if you just want to make sure that you've got some tests on hand at home, the federal government won't be making those free. They have confirmed that there are plans in place to make those tests free in vulnerable communities. And if you fall under those close contact rules that we were just talking about, where you'll have to do a rapid antigen test on days 1 and 6, you can also access those publicly funded tests at a testing facility. But it depends also, again, on where you live in Australia. So, for instance, Victoria is planning to make those rapid antigen tests free, but you'll also have to try and find one, even if either if you're getting them free or if you're purchasing them. Either way, it's pretty hard to find them at the moment. They're in pretty short supply in a number of parts of the country. We're also hearing too about reports of price gouging. Some people saying they're paying $25 for a single rapid antigen test. Now, Labor's weighed in on this issue today. We've heard from Shadow Health Minister Mark Butler. He says the federal government needs to be doing way more to make these tests available and easy to get.
The rapid testing system is a complete shambles. Yesterday, after months and months of resisting calls from Labor, from industry, from public health experts to set up a decent rapid testing program, Scott Morrison decided to move rapid tests to the centre of our testing and tracing system without apparently giving any thought to questions of supply and questions of affordability. Shelves around the country are empty. Australians cannot, for the life of them, get their hand on a rapid test.
Shadow Health Minister there, Mark Butler. And Tasmania will be adopting the National Cabinet definition for close contacts tomorrow on New Year's Day.
Up to date on Australian Indian Radio, and as we know, a definition of anything is could be very different to many people. But right now, as we know, that with the growing number of cases, there's been 2 deaths in aged care. Here's that report.
Authorities are very concerned of those case numbers. 2,093 cases were recorded in the past 24 hours. That was about a jump of about 600 or 700 cases on yesterday. Premier Stephen Marshall, he's been speaking just recently. He said that that high jump is a reflection of the Christmas period and the gatherings that people have been having. Despite those high jump in cases, there will be some easings with people from interstate no longer having to do a rapid antigen test before coming into South Australia. And for those international arrivals coming into the state as well, those who are double vaccinated will no longer have to quarantine when they do arrive into Adelaide. South Australia did sign off on that new definition of a close contact from National Cabinet, but less than 24 hours after that, Chief Health Officer Nicola Spurrier said that South Australia would not adopt that just yet. They would be sticking firm with all the protocols that were in place before that. Premier Stephen Marshall did speak a little bit before. Here's what he had to say.
There was a very high level of asymptomatic testing. It's not optimal here in South Australia. And it is using up a finite resource. So there was a drop, but it's still too high. Over 50% of all of those tests were asymptomatic tests. We've got to get that significantly down from that so that we are freeing up that expanding test capacity in South Australia for those close contacts and also all of those people with symptoms across our state.
People being urged not to get tested if they are not symptomatic, of course, if that's the case. And we should see a big relief on the healthcare system here in South Australia.
And of course, it is putting a strain on the healthcare system there as well. Well, right now, looking at the healthcare system, don't forget that at 10 a.m. we'll have Your Health, meaning Aapka Sehat segment for this month. That's coming up at 10 a.m. Please tune in for that as well. Well, when people on social media were joking about the booster shots, that, there'll be 1, there'll be 2, there'll be 3. Well, Israel has just approved the 4th booster. Here's that report.
at a hospital near Tel Aviv, this man is doing something no one else in the world has yet.
Well, I'm excited to be the first person, apparently in the world, who got the fourth booster. To paraphrase an old saying, it's a small jab in the shoulder, probably a giant step for mankind.
He's part of a world-first trial into a fourth dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Israel has largely avoided a surge in Omicron so far, but officials warn that won't last much longer, and they're hoping a fourth dose will protect the most vulnerable from an incoming wave.
The bad news is that Omicron is anywhere between 5 to 10 times more infectious, which means that once it's in Israel, and we tried very hard to delay it by closing the borders, etc., but what we knew, it's coming.
A major unknown, though, is whether yet another booster will produce better immunity.
We don't know the benefits and we don't know the risk. We just guess, educated guess, but we guess.
A country of more than 9 million, Israel bet early and heavily on vaccination as a ticket out of this pandemic. It was the first country earlier this year to roll out booster shots to its population, but now scientists warn that immunity from those third doses is fading.
We know that there is waning immunity. We see that those with 3 doses, if you are less than 4 months or after 4 months, there is a clear difference.
That's why a fourth dose has been given the green light for immunocompromised people, and officials will consider expanding the rollout as new data comes to light.
And of course, the $1 billion question about efficacy. In about 2 weeks, we're going to see what is exactly the rise in antibodies, also cell immune response. We're all waiting for the empirical data.
As the rest of the world watches on and hopes for answers too. Tom Joyner, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Of course, it is now official day, the fourth booster shot, so there we go. We are yet to get our boosters because we have got that first and the second dose, so we're fully vaccinated and we are allowed to go into venues after we saw that certificate of vaccination. But now we have to get the booster with once we complete that waiting period. But there you go. Israel is on to fourth booster shot. So well done, well ahead. Right now, let's take a look at our sponsors for this segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And yes, real estate is the world. And don't forget that from next week we will be resuming the weekly real estate updates. And of course, welcome to the show, JP Sodi. Yes, Israel is on fourth, and good to see that you're getting your first booster shot in January. Good to see. Hi everyone. Last night we hosted the first anniversary of the Music Junction featuring Saneha, and it went very well. We'll show you a little bit of a glimpse of that. Of course, you can all go and watch it during your holidays. It's a good viewing, wonderful songs, beautiful singing, and very well presented by Savi. We'll show you a glimpse of that right towards the end of today's program. But up next, let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place right here. And yes, that's a scene from the Music Junction of last night. Well, as I promised, let's take a look and see if we can get a glimpse of what actually happened. And of course, you can always go onto our Facebook page or onto our YouTube channel and view the full version of last night's very successful, very wonderful the show. And the Sneha song.
वाह नेहा जी, आपने तो कमाल कर दिया। क्या खूब गाना गाया है। आपने मेरा दिल तो जीत ही लिया, पर हमारे दर्शकों का भी दिल जरूर जीत लिया होगा। क्यों दोस्तों, आपने ये गाना एंजॉय किया ना? वैसे नेहा जी वडोदरा से, गुजरात से बिलोंग करती है, पर लास्ट 12-13 सालों से ये ब्रिस्बेन में ही सेटल है। इन्होंने MA आर्ट्स करने के बाद संगीत में विशारद किया, क्योंकि इन्हें बचपन से ही संगीत का शौक था। इन्होंने 12 साल की छोटी सी उम्र से ही अपने गानों से लोगों को प्रभावित किया है। जैसे हम सभी जानते हैं कि गुजरात में गरबा एक डांस फॉर्म है जो बहुत ही पॉपुलर है। इसके संगीत का एक अपना अलग अंदाज है और नेहा जी इसे बचपन से ही इस गरबे में बहुत सारे गाने गाती थी। और वो कहते हैं ना कि फाफड़ा और गरबा, इसके बिना हर गुजराती अधूरा है। हमारी नेहा जी भी इससे वंचित नहीं रही। इन्होंने बचपन से ही इसमें बहुत सारे गाने गाए और सबका दिल लुभाया था। यहाँ ब्रिस्बेन में भी गरबा के जो प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं आजकल तो बहुत सारे होते हैं यहाँ पे। ड्यूरिंग दोस गरबा पीरियड ये इसमें लाइव सिंगिंग भी करती है। आपने भी कभी न कभी इन्हें सुना होगा। तो चलिए दोस्तों, अब इसी सुरीली आवाज का अगला गाना सुनते हैं।
I have to leave that there because we have at 10 a.m. we have Aapka Sehat, the special program of Australian Medical Association, and that is coming up at 10. And the wonderfully presented show that you were just watching, you can go back on our YouTube channel or Facebook and you can watch it, rerun it. Of course, it's some of the comments that have come all the way from India, from Fiji, from all around the world, and such wonderful reviews and beautifully presented by the RJ Savi. It's just amazing the way she presents that show. And of course, credit goes to all our singers who come in and into the studios to do that. And of course, there are sometimes, a few little technical glitches being a live, so presented live. So some technicalities do happen, but overall it's an amazing show, a must-watch show. So until next time, until 10 a.m. when we present Aapka Sehat of the first one for this year at 10, we'll catch you up then. Hope this 2022 is a beautiful and wonderful year, a very prosperous one for everyone, and I hope we forget this strain of COVID.